Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Phil Mackintosh, Chief Economist at Nasdaq, for an update on the latest COVID-19 news, the U.S. and global economies, and how markets are digesting the progress of reopening and economic data. And Phil, weekly jobless claims hit their lowest level of the pandemic era, totaling 1.19 million last week. The last time the number was this low was March 14th, just as coronavirus hit pandemic status in the United States and the economy came to a halt. So what are your thoughts on the numbers this morning?
Yeah, I mean, the new claims numbers have been stalling out. I mean, they're still multiples more than a normal number. So they're kind of off the old-fashioned charts, but they've been getting better in sort of June-ish into July. Now they've stalled. And what we're seeing is there's still a lot of people that are kind of underemployed as well. It's not just the top line unemployment number that you've got to look at. There's all the people on these pandemic programs that add to, potentially 30, 40, 50% on top of what we're seeing. So there's a lot of companies that aren't back to full speed, that they haven't called the staff back to full-time work, but they're paying the staff through some of the other programs as well. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to try and get people back to work and try and get the economy going again, so that all these people can have a bit of job security, even if right now, financially, the stimulus measures have, up until last week, been reasonably good at replacing some of the consumption and the income in the economy.
All right, let's talk about that personal income data on a couple of charts here.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the old stimulus, and obviously we're discussing the new stimulus still in the Hill, is the old stimulus actually increased income levels, which is pretty phenomenal, and it was pretty well known. People have been talking about this for a couple of months. But what happened was consumption actually fell, even though the $1,200 checks, the $600 unemployment benefits added to total income. People stopped spending as much money. And so we've seen that kind of, normalize as people have started to get back to work, but people have obviously been saving some of the money they've been getting, even though total income is higher now than it was before. And I think that's one of the holdups with the discussions on the Hill now for the next round of stimulus is we don't necessarily want to give out so much of a handout that we increase income to people that aren't actually working. We want to make sure that the people that really need it get enough to go back to the shops and buy food and pay rent and all the important things. We don't want to all be supporting people's saving habits and sort of socializing that. So there's a lot of debate on the Hill about how to incentivize people to get back to work, about what's the right amount of support and stimulus to be giving people. And that's what's holding up this next round of stimulus. But that's pretty important because people might have been saving because they're worried about how much money they will have in the future. They might have been worrying about exactly what's happening right now and how much they would need put away for a rainy day. What's interesting too is we've looked at it before. What's the trend in terms of consumption recovery? And we've seen that a lot of the low income people pretty much got back to normal spending. It's the high income people that are still well under normal spending levels. And that's probably because a lot of the discretionary spend is in areas where it's not that safe or that comfortable to go and do things anymore, like going to sport events and sitting in stadiums, hopping on airplanes, going to hotels and resorts, going to restaurants and eating out. All those sorts of things are discretionary spends. And when you actually look at the change in retail consumption, you can see those areas of the economy are down 30+% still in terms of consumption spending. Things like goods and communication services, so Netflix and all of the Wi-Fi that we're using now when we're working from home are actually up year on year. So they've recovered. And then that sort of points to some of the different outcomes we've seen in earnings this quarter as well, as some of the companies are doing quite well out of the coronavirus changes. Others are doing quite badly.
All right, Phil, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.